Hey everybody, welcome back to Ken Michaels Radio, where we talk all the time about the Beatles and we talk about anything related to the Beatles. We've done some shows in the past where Badfinger is discussed. In fact, the very first video that I presented on my new channel here was my interview with Joey Molland when he released his last album, Be True to Yourself. And through the years, I interviewed Joey quite a lot. And we have with us Bob Jackson, who joined the band in 1974. And back in December of last year, in 2024, the album Head First was reissued. And Bob did the remixing for the album. And he's here to talk about the Badfinger days and this album with us. So welcome to Ken Michaels Radio.
Oh, you can. Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
You want to just hold up the front cover of Head First for anyone that hasn't seen it yet?
Yeah, sure. Well, it comes in this dinky size CD,
I
or it
still,
comes in the king size,
uh-huh.
which is the album
Yeah.
vinyl album.
How was that cover decided with the lion with an open mouth like that?
It was based on an idea by Tommy, the bass player, Tommy Evans,
Uh-huh.
and he had this idea in his head about the old-fashioned circus act, where the ringmaster opens the jaws of the lion and dares people to put their heads in, for a jolly jape.
Uh-huh.
So it was based on that, and basically he was drawing an analogy with the situation we were with our management, because it was dangerous. And yeah, so that was it. That was the analogy.
Okay.
Tom's idea.
Now, before joining Badfinger, were you a major fan of the band?
And I wouldn't say I was a major fan of the band. Of course, I was, very aware of them. And the overall thing the overall sort of impression I got was that they were a classy band. All the songs I heard were very classy. But I couldn't say that I was following them in any way.
Oh, okay. For me, and I'll only say this once because I've repeated this in the past, but there's only a very small percentage of bands out there in rock history where you have every member write material and sing lead. And certainly in the quartet that we knew as Badfinger before your joining, they all wrote material, they all sang lead to their own songs.
Yeah.
And how many bands can you say that about? So few. And it really makes you appreciate the group effort behind everything that they did. So in some ways, they're kind of more fascinating as a band than other bands out there.
I absolutely agree with that. This is something I've sort of reflected on and mentioned before in conversation with people, that it is an unusual thing, not just for singers, for writers, for instrumental. Yeah, you're dead on. It
Hmm.
is unusual.
So actually, before you worked on Head First, didn't you do a tour?
Uh, well, I'd done a tour with a different band. I'd just come back from America, and
Okay.
I yeah, I did the Clapton tour. We were a support band on the Clapton US comeback tour in '74, and I left that band, came back, didn't know what to do, and got a telegram that said, I told you it was old. Don't have telegrams now, do we? Got a telegram, would you like to audition for this job? So I auditioned for the job. So we did the tour once I got into the band, and then the album followed that.
Okay. So the tour that you just mentioned, that was a Badfinger tour?
The tour following the album, yes.
Right. But was Joey with you then? Joey Molland?
Yes. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
With him.
Yeah.
Why
Yes,
did
it was a weird situation because I joined on the basis that I was replacing someone in the band. That was Pete. I didn't really know that till I got there, but I
Oh,
was told when I got there. And I guess I kind of passed the audition and blah, blah, blah. And then a couple of days later, Pete Ham actually arrived in the studio. I hadn't met him before, obviously. And he stood in the corner listening, tapping his foot, and seemed to be generally enjoying it. And everyone shook hands. And then quite quickly, he and the other guys went outside for a conflab, for a talk. And I was just left in the practice room with the roadie thinking, ooh, where does that leave me? And, you know, this is weird. This is strange. Anyway, to cut a long story short, I mean, he came back, they all came back and announced that, look, he's going to rejoin us. I said, oh, right, okay. And they said, but don't worry, you know, we want you in. It's sounding great. So, yeah, so the tour was as a 5-piece.
Interesting. Because I thought maybe the reason why they hired you was to replace Joey from the.
No, it was to replace Pete. That's ironic, isn't it? You replace a guy and then he comes back.
Why did he leave for a short time, Pete?
There was upsets. There'd been tensions in the band about a few different things. I guess the primary one was about the management.
Yeah.
And trusting what the management said. And Pete had never quite given up on the management. Joey and his wife, by comparison, had this kind of thing of, you know, look, man, they're crooks, and, you know, we want to get someone else in, and we're gonna sort it out. And Pete kind of just took umbrage at that, really, and felt that you know, any decision should be the 4 of them discussing it together. And so that was the initial thing that why Pete split, yeah.
Yeah. So the reason why Joey left then was if he wanted the band to work things out as the 4 of them, why did he leave?
Well, I think the tensions that I mentioned were already too deep, too ingrained, so that when Joey joined when we carried on as the 5-piece for the tour, although he went down great on stage, there was still a tension, personal tension in the band. So at the end of the tour, Joe just said, look, not for me, I'm off. And yet we'd done well, you know, we hadn't done badly at all. So you might say that it was partly kind of personal, and based on the management situation as well, you know.
So were you kept privy of all the management problems and the problems with Warner Brothers and all of that, or as the new guy, were you kind of kept out of it?
I wasn't kind of sat down and told anything. I mean, from the time I joined, it was kind of work, just rehearsing, because the tour was imminent.
Yeah.
So, but throughout the tour, slowly but surely, bits of conversation went on, and I started to glean, wait a minute, things aren't as wholesome as I kind of thought here. They're having big problems with their management and stuff. And that concerned me as well, because I wondered, was I going to have to sign with this management? You know, it wasn't good, but I only gleaned it over a period of time.
Now, it goes without saying that Badfinger, to me, outside of the Beatles, they were the most successful act on Apple, besides the Beatles and the solo Beatles and everything. But despite their success, their albums on Apple and the first 2 on Warner Brothers, I felt were so solid, especially Wish You Were Here. They should have been 10 times bigger than they were.
Absolutely, yeah.
So didn't they feel like in the case of Warner Brothers, they weren't doing enough to promote them? I mean, did you get into conversations about that?
No, because at the time that we had, you know, we were on the tour, they expected Warner's to continue to promote that album. And we had talks about that, you know, well, the new album, Wish You Were Here, is you know, hasn't long been out. They'll get a push behind that. That was our understanding at that point. And it wasn't really until all the business end collapsed when our manager, Polley, took money from an escrow account, a good faith account. That was when Warner's pulled the plug and said, "Wait a minute, we're not promoting your last album, and we're not accepting this album either." So it was only then that we realised. Before then, we thought they were going to get in, be promoting the thing.
So when they asked you to record the third album, Head First, that was still with the understanding that they were going to promote it before they had the falling out with Polley.
Well, let's analyse that a little. It wasn't really Warner's who asked us to do that album. There was a what do you call it? An option for the band to deliver another album, and it was our manager who said, "Get in there quickly. I want to get this next advance." And we were confused about that. We were like, "But wait a minute, there's always there already exists an album to promote. No, I don't care about that. Just get in, do whatever you want. Doesn't matter about the quality, blah, blah, blah. We want that advance." So it wasn't really Warner's who instigated that option. It was just an option on the table, and Stan decided, "Hey, there's some money there. I want to get it quick."
That's all that he seemed to care about.
Yep.
Well, so you worked on Head First, and it was recorded very quickly in about 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, less than 2 weeks, about 11 days, I think. Yeah.
Was every single song new? Obviously, the songs that you co-wrote with Tommy had to be brand new, but were these any of these songs, were any of them hanging around for a while and then you decided to do it, or were they all completely new?
They were more or less all new. I think Pete had this basic template for "Lay Me Down" already. I think Mike had the verse to "Moonshine" already. But as far as just about all the songs were written specifically in that very short time period before going into the studio. I've looked back on that and can't quite understand why Pete, who we now know had a bag full of songs, that he didn't kind of say, "Well, look, I've got all these songs." But he didn't. They all acted in a very kind of democratic way. And said, let's prepare something between the four of us as far as possible, and keep the standard up, but not just kind of pull older stuff out just to meet this deadline. Let's try and get something together as a foursome, because of course by this time Joe had left. Right. So yeah, it is slightly curious that Pete and Tom didn't say, "Look, we've already got songs." They were very, very kind and caring and democratic, I think, by letting me have a say.
Maybe they wanted to keep it fresh with brand new because you joined the band.
I think you're possibly right. And that was wonderful for me. Their generosity of spirit was amazing, really, when you think about it.
Yeah. Now, this album came out in 2000. What was the story behind that? And I heard that actually these recordings were lost.
Well, I was the mover and shaker behind getting the album out in 2000. The trouble was that we didn't have the multi-track tapes, as you mentioned there. The word was that they were lost, stolen, missing, whatever you want to call it. But I got frustrated for the last 25 years thinking that album is never, ever going to come out. So what I did have was a reel-to-reel tape of a mix that the engineer, Phil McDonald, from the session had done for us. Now all that was it was a very simplistic mix. He did it in next to no time at all, and it was just for a reference for each member of the band when we left the studio. Yeah. Before the album was going to be mixed properly. So it was a very rough mix, quickly done. It wasn't the best quality, and I did say that at the time in any publicity and stuff, I said, look, I pointed out this is not a proper release. It's the 4-track, but it's all we have. It's the four, it's just a demo mix from Phil McDonald. And because actually I felt a little guilty about that, I also arranged for a second disc to be with that package, which were other demos that people hadn't heard yet. So that was my way of justifying it. It's like, look, I know this isn't the real deal, but it ought to be out by now. And by the way, you've got all these demos as well. So it kind of worked. But yeah, it wasn't until a year and a half, 2 years ago that I actually managed to get hold of the multitracks. Now that was mind-blowing for me. It's like, wow, they are there and they are in good condition and blah, blah, blah. So once I realized that, obviously I released it the wrong way around, but I released the proper version after the kind of demo-y version had come out.
So where were the multi-tracks all this time?
It's a very good question. I mean, ultimately, Warner sent me, I had to get into a very long conversation, but ultimately Warner's sent me them. But that took 7-8 months of negotiating on the phone between me and a lawyer in America, proving, first of all, asking them to locate the tapes, which they said they didn't know about. And secondly, to point out that legally, they didn't own them, we owned them. They'd always maintained, even at the time when I released the 2000 release of the demos, that they owned them. We had no right over them. So it took me 7 or 8 months to convince them, by the power of logic, that, look, guys, you don't own it. You didn't pay for it. You rejected it. Don't you remember? Blah, 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 blah. So ultimately, I won the arguments, and sure enough, they found them. And I got them. So I was amazed all that happened. I mean, who could have guessed?
Yeah. So later on, when Tom was still alive and Mike was still alive, they never pursued this in any way?
We talked about it, but we thought it was a lost cause because there was so much litigation between the management, Warner's, and ourselves that it was the last thing on everyone's mind. You know what I mean? Me and Tommy, on subsequent tours that we did, because we did several tours after Pete died, we would talk about it and say, I wonder whatever happened to that whole, it's crazy, isn't it? But as I said, the word was, when we ever inquired about it, all the inquiries were like, no one knows where it is, it's missing, And there was so much legality anyway, where Warners were saying you don't own it. So what are you going to do,
Okay.
Strange situation.
I'm certainly glad that you were able to negotiate whatever had to be done, because these songs are a real treasure. And I have to tell you, first of all, that the sound is amazing when you listen to this. So you did an incredible job. And
thank you.
If anything, you can hear every element of the mix, especially as a harmony guy. The harmonies on this album are phenomenal. The drumming from Mike, there's so many fills there that's like, wow, he's really playing his butt off here.
You think he's Keith Moon sometimes, don't you?
So and the songs are just so solid all the way through. And like I said before about this band, they should have been so much bigger. A song like Lay Me Down, how on earth that song was not a big hit? I mean, I could say that about so many songs from Badfinger. As much as I love the 4 big hits that they had in America, there's so many other great songs they did besides those 4. And I love those 4 songs. But when you go through their album catalog, there's so many other great songs written by all the different members. And so you carried on that tradition with the songs that you brought to them. But, it's just so sharp and clear, everything that you hear in this mix.
Well, we took a lot of trouble. My partner, Andy Nixon, who's a very talented guy who I work with over here. we discussed it a lot as to how to approach it. There were some guidelines. The first guideline was we can't put any overdubs on this. That would just be wrong. Although there's other things I could have done to enhance the arrangements, because of course there was so little time when we were actually recording at Apple. But that was a no-no. It's like, no, we can't be doing that. And production-wise, should we make it sound kind of a bit modern, But again, no. I thought it's got to feel like it fits into the catalogue. It's got to sound like it's from that time. The other thing that we did, of course, is we remastered it rather than sending it to anyone else. We did it. So we had total control over the whole thing. And I have to say, I'm pleased how it's turned out and the reaction it's got so far.
Yeah, well, it doesn't sound like, a new recording of today with modern technology and everything. It sounds like a 1974 recording, but the best it can possibly sound from 1970.
Yeah. Well, that was the plan. I was very particular about those points that I made. That it should sound like it came from then, and but it was really an uphill struggle to get all that legalese and just convincing them that I owned those tapes, or sorry, the estates owned those tapes, and that they should find them. We want them. That was an uphill struggle. So, but it paid off, didn't it? It's great.
Now, I want to talk about, there's two songs from Tommy here, which obviously tells you a lot of what was on his mind at the
Yeah.
time with Hey, Mr. Manager and Rock and Roll Contract. And I just want to read for our viewers right now, if they haven't heard the song, either song, Hey, Mr. Manager, some of the lyrics here. Waiting for the phone to tell me you and I are through. And I'm not alone. I guess that everybody wants it too. You got no feeling. You've been dealing all the wrongs, the lives you're stealing. Lord, I think you should be gone. Hey, Mr. Manager, you're messing up my life. Hey, Mr. Manager, don't think I need that kind of strife. So he's telling it like it is right here of what the band's going through. Was there any kind of trepidation in putting out songs like these, not knowing how Stan Polley would feel, or?
Well, I think our depth of feeling at the time of the recording was we just want to be honest. We weren't going to kowtow, if you know what I mean. But you make an interesting point, because I do remember when Polly sent over his representative and stuff, and this was after the album was finished, to collect the album and so on. And I remember Tommy having a kind of a fit of conscience, and I heard him say, just tell Stan, it's nothing personal with those lyrics, but by the way, it's nothing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he finally sort of thought, maybe I have to, kind of make up, or, I had to explain it in advance and try and calm the waters. Because, although the song was very, sounded like a poppy, happy-go-lucky song, as you say, the lyrics, it's just a disguise, because the lyrics really tell it how it is.
Right. Did Polly ever get back to Tom and say, I'm not happy with this or anything?
No, we never heard from Polly, of course, after all that.
Yeah.
So, no, never.
It's an incredible song. I love the guitar lick throughout the song.
Yeah, yeah,
And Rock and Roll Contract. What a great, powerful rock and roll song that is. I
yeah.
mean, talk about Mike's drumming there. I mean, it's explosive, you
It
know.
is. Yeah,
It's like an all-round rocker and very great edgy tune. So that's another
and
one.
again, very dark lyrics
Yeah.
again. Yeah,
Yeah, you made me your slave, whatever God gave me. That part, that whatever you want, maybe it's a middle eight or a bridge or whatever.
hmm.
That's real gut-wrenching there, what he's saying. You
Yeah.
took to the grave, you took to the grave, now it's gone. I gave you my heart, whatever God gave me, and you took to the grave, now it's gone. Yeah, it's gone. So
Yeah.
really tells you how he felt and how the band felt. So
Yeah. Yeah. He said it like it was, you know. Yeah.
I got to tell you, and I love all the songs on the album, but the one that really struck me immediately, well, Lay Me Down is like, how can it's as commercial a song as you could possibly get and as powerful as you can make it, and such great PM vocals. But I really liked Back Again a lot.
Yeah.
The acoustic guitar playing on it, and especially the synthesizer part, which adds so much to it, and that was your doing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's Mike's, of course, Mike's
Yeah.
song. And yeah, he brought it along. And again, we were throughout the whole process of recording, we were so tight on time. You
Yeah.
know, it really was like a ticking clock. It wasn't like we could have extra days after that 11-day period. I
Mm.
mean, we knew we were up against it. So, but yeah, we needed something else on it. So we had to work in a very workmanlike way. But I did manage to come up with those parts, yeah, to enhance it, you know,
Yeah.
like a synthesizer and kind of stringy pad, which kind of worked, I thought, yeah.
Oh, it's the perfect accompaniment, as was the harmonica.
Yeah. That was a nice little extra as well.
Yeah.
Again, all these decisions weren't arranged ahead of time. We didn't routine all those songs before we went in. I mean, it was all done there, and then all the arrangements and rehearsing together was in the studio. So when you look at it like that, there was an enormous amount of work to be done under great pressure and all the worries about the business stuff as well. In next to no time. I mean, I am proud, you know, of what we achieved at that time. You know, we did amazingly well. You know, it's a tribute to everyone's tenacity, you know, to have got on with it.
Well, yeah. Did you find it stressful to be able to come up with the strong material in less than 2 weeks and to lay it down?
Not really. I mean, I only contributed on 3 songs, but no, we just got on with it. I stopped with Tommy, so the 2 songs, obviously, it was in his house up in his little attic studio. We worked. We worked a few nights. We didn't have that long to get it together, but we worked a few nights to get those songs. And with I had a track that Tommy he championed it really, turn around. I
Yeah.
didn't champion it. I had other ballads and stuff that I thought were much more Badfingery. And he went, no, we got all those. We don't we don't need those. We you know, bit of rock, we need a bit of grit, you know. So he championed getting that song on, not more than I did, you know. I mean, I was delighted that he did, but so yeah, I just had the guitar part to that and got the lyrics together when I was at Tommy's myself. So it was all done in a very tight, compacted time.
Yeah. That song, I think, has a really nice blues feel to it.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I mentioned harmonies, great harmonies in that song,
yeah,
especially
yeah,
when you're singing "Let's Forget the Dreams We Had." That part. It's
yeah,
really
yeah, yeah.
was it
No,
was
thanks.
it a great experience just working out the harmonies with the other guys?
Yes, it was. I mean, the one thing that has to be said, I've been talking about all the doom and gloom element to this, you know, leading up to the session and so on.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is that when we got in there, we worked very well together. There was no kind of angst or arguing or anything like that. I mean, it just went so smoothly. When I analyse it now, it had to have gone smoothly, otherwise we wouldn't have got through it all. But
Yeah.
but it did come together very naturally. Yeah, no, it was a joy. I mean, the whole thing was a joy, other than the fact that we knew, gosh, that's another day gone. Oh, we haven't got enough tracks. Come on, we got to get on with it, you know. But
Mm.
the actual process of doing the harmonies and doing the arranging the songs and recording them, and often, by the way, Ken, it would be just 1 or 2 takes for each song for the backing track. I mean, we didn't have that luxury of, hey, use, you know, take 15 or take 25 that we did. We didn't have time to lay that many down. we just did a few and had to pick from that. But it was joyful in the studio. It was great.
Yeah. Some of what you're saying reminds me of what Paul McCartney has said at times about recording with the Beatles, and that he and John would write a song, they bring it to the studio, George and Ringo wouldn't know it, and they'd have
Yeah,
to learn it that day. And they recorded a lot of their songs very quickly, learn the whole arrangement like that. Maybe not in one day. Some songs were, some weren't, but they had to really arrange everything fairly quickly. And sometimes when you don't spend too much time overthinking, you get great results that way.
that's right. I think you're working instinctively in that sense rather than analytically, if you know what I mean. You don't have time to be analytical. So it's your subconscious, I think, kicking in quick. I've got to come up with something. What's the most natural thing? You know what I mean? You get
Yeah.
straight to the point. And often the simplest thing is the best. Often the first take of that you do is often the best. It's a
Yeah.
funny thing, isn't it? Yeah.
Did Phil McDonald give you any kind of advice on any of the songs and the arrangements, or that was you were just totally independent of that?
Well, we had a couple. Phil didn't. He was great to work with, very quick, and in dropping in and that sort of thing. I mean, he was a seasoned pro, wasn't he? So he knew what he was doing. We did have a couple of producers in with us that we haven't
Right.
mentioned yet,
Yeah.
but they produced Kiss before us. Kerner and Wise, Kenny Kerner, Richie Wise, and they were sent over by Polley. We hadn't met them before, and we didn't choose them. He chose them. We got on okay with them, but they didn't have a chance really to give any suggestions in
Right.
terms of the arrangements or what they thought we should. There was no time for talking really, so we just got on with it.
Hmm. All right. Um, can you talk about Past Fast? I love the piano playing in it. It's a very edgy song. The guitars are very edgy. I love the
Yeah,
blending of the two. Um, and you wrote that with Tommy.
that's right. Yeah, that was one of those that we got together in his room upstairs. Yeah, I think initially we'd had another section in it, another musical sort of section. When we got in the studio, we quickly thought, no, that doesn't work. It was like an instrumental riff thing. So we dropped that out, and again quickly arranged it. Yeah, that was good. I think me and Tom sang good two-part on that. Fortunately we could sing quite closely. You know what I mean? We're quite tightly together. Yeah, no, yeah. I don't know what to say about it really.
All the songs are solid. You want to talk about Savile Row and how you finished it off?
Yeah, okay. So, as I was mentioning earlier, because we were so tight on time, we got to the last day or so, and we just really didn't have time for the last track, for the last track to be recorded. Pete had mentioned this thing he had before Savile Row as a little instrumental idea. Obviously, he'd hoped, or we'd hoped, to develop that, but there really wasn't the time. So what we did in the studio was he showed it me initially. He said, look, here are the chords, you play it. And I watched him playing it, and I said, well, you're playing it. You might as well do it, Pete. It sounds good. Sounds good. He was going, do you think so? I'm like, yeah, of course it does. Sounds great. So he laid the keyboard, the piano down and the lead line. In the little time we had left, I added some synth lines to it as well. But that was all. And so when the demo thing that came out in 2000, that's all that was. And it was so ineffectual that the person who was involved, because I wasn't involved in any of the mixing or mastering on the 2000 album, it came out as just a 30-second track. Now, when it came to this album, we actually had the multi-track. So I thought 30 seconds, that's kind of insulting. It's not even a track, you know. So what we did was we pulled it apart and layered it all up. Started with Pete's part at the beginning. Then we added a bass note that we got from another song that Tommy had done. There was only some simple notes, but we just pitch shifted them. And we added a simple one note bass at beat one on the bar, you know, just simple. Then we started adding the synth lines, I think, that I'd done. Then we still didn't think it was quite complete enough. So what we did was we flew in some vocals from the other tracks, from the, you know, Keep Believing and so on and so forth. And again, we pitch shifted them to fit in into the chord sequence, but we layered it up right at the end to create a kind of, you know, climax at the end, a build. We did all that. We didn't know what to do. You know, it's very hard to make a decision about what do you do with that. It was obviously not feasible to just leave it at half a minute, and it didn't go anywhere. So I just did all that with the idea that this could be, it wouldn't have been what Pete, who couldn't know what Pete had planned for it. But it was something different, and it was our kind of goodbye to Savile Row. It was our, you know, tribute in a way to the time we'd spent there.
It's the perfect way to end the album, and it's such a pretty song. And I love the use of moonshine in there.
Yeah.
It all blends together so well.
Yeah, I guess you might say it's you know, at the end of the day, it's a collage. There's no extra bits being invented. Every part that's played or sung is by the guys, by us on that album. But it did need building somehow, and that was what me and Andy came up with in the end.
Yeah. Keep Believing. It's another great song. I mean, Pete gave you two amazing songs on this album.
Absolutely.
And, I mean, that's another one that to me could have been a single. So it's incredible, especially with all the Y&T releases of all these demos that have come out, how much more stuff Pete wrote, and also Tommy, and just how prolific these guys were beyond what they released. So, you know, it's just a shame that I just wish Badfinger had been so much more appreciated. I know they were to some degree when at that time, but hopefully now and in years to come with reissues and something like this, people will grow to appreciate all the members and all their contributions.
Yeah, I hope so too. There's no doubt there was so much more that we could have gone on to do if it wasn't for that House of Cards effect, you know, where everything kind of crumbled. Right at the end there, when you think about it, there was kind of a huge, you know, a lot of different events happened at the same time. You know, we came off a tour, Joey left, Warner Brothers started all that stuff. We had to do that album in a very short time. The manager ran off with the money. And then, of course, it got too much for Pete. He fell into a very deep depression about it. It was his first time not living in that little kind of bed sitting in Park Avenue. You know, he just put a deposit on a house, and the pressure was really on him. I mean, the pressure was on all of us, of course, but for him particularly. Yeah. But it's such a, yes, it is tragic. I mean, it's such a shame, really, because there was so much more to do. And I think Head First proves that we could have gone on, you know, and ridden the storm if only if only we'd have all kind of held ourselves together.
It's understandable how depressed Pete would have been with all these problems mounting. Did he reach out to you guys for guidance when he was really struggling to deal with this, or?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think yes, he did. Yeah, of course, we all talked together. Yeah, we talked together. at various points, in different combinations. Tommy would speak to him. I'm sure Mike would speak to him. We met together a few times afterwards after the recording because we tried to get other managements interested in us.
Right.
And so our mind was on moving forward and the business and the problems. He even invited me down to his place just a few days before he died to stop there for a few days. That was out of the blue. I now wonder whether it was a kind of goodbye. I don't know. It was unusual, he just sort of said, why don't you come down and stop with me? And I did stop and we talked through the night many times, and we had a good time with each other. We laughed, but of course there was this underlying thing, the worry of what was happening. But yeah, I mean, he wasn't closed about it. He didn't hide himself away. We were all very aware of how serious a mess we were in. And none of these managements, by the way, that I just mentioned, no one would take us on at that point. They were saying, well, you get yourself out of that fix you're in, you solve that and come back, But we needed someone to help us. We couldn't do it on our own.
It's such a sad story in a lot of ways, but listen to the music because that has always been joyful. That's always been,
Yeah.
a great contribution that all the members of Badfinger have given us. And since I do a Beatles channel here, I have to ask you, was there any time when you met any of them?
No, no. The only time I kind of met Paul McCartney was when my daughter went to Lipper. That's a school in Liverpool that his old school. He presented her with the award, and I kind of walked up. But no, I didn't meet them in the studio or anything. No.
Hmm. And what was it like to actually work at Apple? What were their
For me, mind blowing. I mean, it was surreal. Suddenly I'd come off this 3-month tour in the States, a bit worn out after that, but suddenly into this new thing. And the thought, I mean, it's hard to explain what was in my head, but it was all so surreal and dreamlike, gosh, I'm in Apple, I mean, the other guys, it was like, oh, yeah. But for me, wow, oh, it was, yeah. Yeah, it was a wonderful experience. I mean, despite all the other stuff that's gone down, the lows and the lows, there was a lot of really positive stuff. I don't. Yeah, I mean, there was so much positive stuff, and particularly now, as you say, it's joyful. You have to lean into that. Ultimately, the joy of the music and the fact that it's lasted all these years, and there's still a kind of sizable fan base even after all this time, who are fascinated by it all. So, having said that, I mean, it upset me for many. Obviously, it upset us all. We were all close to nervous breakdowns after Pete died.
Mm-hmm.
But I've got over that over a period of time and looked for the best in it all, because you've got to, haven't you? You've got to find the best things and minimise the.
Yeah. Well, this has been amazing talking to you about this. Can you tell us what you're doing now aside from your work on Head First? Are you going to be releasing music of your own today or touring today?
I don't want to commit to anything, but I've certainly got some plans. I don't really want to talk about it because nothing's firmed up, But you'll certainly be seeing more from me, whether it's more personal recordings and songs or shows. I'll be around. So keep your eyes open. Yeah.
Is there any chance that you might work on the later Badfinger stuff and either remaster or remix it, like Airwave?
I think there's always a chance, because I'm working very closely with Y&T. We have a little team together, me, Y&T, another couple of guys over there, Tom Brown,
I know Tom. Tom
Kevin,
has been on
Kevin.
this channel.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
And Kevin and Mark Strothman, of course. So there's a team of about five of us, and we're in touch constantly, and we have been for the last, well, ever since I've discovered those the Ed First tapes. So we're always planning something. We speak once a week all the while. So there's lots of plans. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I've been enjoying the new Pete Ham acoustic demos.
yeah.
They keep on coming.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
wow. I mean, what could have been? Huh. Incredible.
All these unreleased songs, and at the same time hearing a song like Midnight Sun or We're for the Dark in its early stages,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
Perfection, with a different title and all that. So
yeah.
yeah, I'm just grateful that Y&T is doing this, and I'm glad you're working with them.
Yeah, no, it's wonderful. In a way, they kind of started the ball rolling by releasing their own compilation of covers for Badfinger called Shine On, I think it was called. And
Yep.
from then on, the team sort of reached out to them and said, we like what you're doing here. Would you like to do some more? And 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 Rich, the guy who runs Y&T, was amazed. He was like, what, really? So he inadvertently kind of started the ball rolling for himself, you know what I mean? And then we've worked with him ever since. He's such an advocate, he's such a. We're all passionate about it, shall we say that? Yeah.
I'll see if I can get him on this channel because
Yeah.
I hope I can do a tribute to Joey fairly soon.
Yeah, absolutely, of course.
This is Shine On, by the way.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, I have it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just telling all the people watching. Pete Ham
Yeah,
demos, Gwent Gardens,
that's right.
Tom Evans demos, I Am Myself.
Yeah.
I have the Pete Ham acoustic in my car, so I can't show it here.
Yeah.
Okay, and of course, there's that first. So this has been delightful, Bob. Thank you for spending time with us and telling my listeners all about the story behind Head First and the songs on it. And I certainly hope you continue doing more work for Badfinger projects. And please keep us in touch on all your music as well.
Well, it's a passion for me, as you've gathered. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to be stopping now. Yeah, you'll hear more. Thank you, Ken. Really grateful to you.
Okay. Thank you for keeping the legacy going for Badfinger. And thanks to all of you for watching. And if you haven't done so, please subscribe to my channel. We'll talk to you very soon. Take care.